Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to be really open, real, and transparent when it comes down to how much you can make as a local performing musician. And based off the thumbnail, as you guys can see, how I went from making $0 to be able to make $250, $300, even upwards of $500 per show in some instances. And I'm going to share with you guys exactly what I do, what I've learned to do, and things not to do as well. Now, there are definitely quite a few contributing factors here. Do you live in a musical city? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. What kind of performer are you? What kind of act do you provide? What's your experience? And even how serious do you want to take this? Because if you want to take this, to maybe just a hobbyist level, just playing, one show a month just to have some fun, that's great. Or do you want to make this part of your living and lifestyle? Do you want to play a show every week, multiple shows every single week? You got to figure that out as well, because those are all really important contributing factors to how far you're going to take this thing. Also, just for reference, a lot of you guys know at this point, based off of previous content here on the channel, that I perform solo acoustic, and that's what I've been doing very seriously for almost 4 years now. So I don't play in any bands or any projects like that. I've been performing solo acoustically, and it's part of my living. I am a working musician, and I also teach private guitar lessons full-time. Now, really quickly, before we do get into things, I do want to come out and say right away that I'm not trying to come off as bragging by any means. So when I do talk about things like my own personal experiences and money and what I make, on average per show roughly, I don't want that to come off as me bragging. I'm really wanting to do the complete opposite. I'm just wanting to be really open and honest with you guys about this subject matter. Okay, so what I want to do now is give you a really quick rundown and kind of summarize my first 3 to 4 years as a performing musician and everything that I kind of experienced all into one, and what you can kind of expect as well. And then what I want to do near more the middle to the end of the video is just give you guys a complete rundown of everything that I would recommend when it comes down to things that I do personally, things I wish I did from the beginning, and things to avoid, so stick around for that. But in my very first year of performing live, as a solo performer where I live, I really didn't make much money. And as you guys can tell again from the thumbnail, I made $0, and that's not I'm not exaggerating that. My first 15 to 20 shows or so, I played basically completely unpaid. I had no base rate going into the venue. And here's the reason why. These venues, thankfully, they allowed me and they gave me a chance. I had no following. I had really no prior experience to performing live. And these venues really just gave me a shot. It was crappy weekday times and weekdays and stuff like that. So the traffic, in these venues wasn't that great, but they at least gave me a shot. And, I would walk out with maybe $30 in tips, but after playing 2 hours, putting a lot of energy and time away for this show, that's really nothing. And these venues, again, wouldn't pay me a cent. So I'm not exaggerating when I say that my first 15 to 20 shows or so, probably within my first 6 months, within that first year, were really unpaid. And I also didn't really get a good flow when it comes to getting more and more experience. I mean, I learned, don't get me wrong, you're going to learn probably the most you're going to learn from the experiences that you're going to gain within your first, 15 to 20 shows. But because I was only playing maybe like 1, maybe 2 shows a month tops, I really wasn't getting a flow. So I was learning a lot, but I wasn't really honing in on my chops just because I didn't have multiple experiences, week after week with multiple shows provided to me. Now, when year 2 rolled around, I had a little bit more of a solid rotation. It wasn't a lot of shows, but it was about 3 to 4 shows a month or so. So I was getting out there nearly once a week, give or take. And at this point, I did require a small base pay from all of the venues that I played at, which was about $50 or $75. Every time I would come in to play 2 sets, that was my base minimum that I required, basically. And at this point, you kind of know your worth and your value a little bit more. You've played a handful of shows. Maybe at this point you've played 25 shows or so, and you know a little bit more about what you're worth. So after I was getting paid, obviously, the base rate plus some pretty decent tips, I'd walk out with about an average of $100 or so per show. So at this point, that was a pretty big jump from year 1 making nothing, or, maybe $30 in tips if I'm lucky, to about $100 per show, once a week. That was a pretty big jump. So that's something that you can definitely take into consideration is you don't want to play for free forever. You also don't want to expect that if you've only played, say, like 5 shows, that now all of a sudden you're worth $200 a show. It doesn't really work like that. It's almost like stepping stones. You know, your first year, you're a rookie, just like in anything else. And then once you learn the ropes, your worth just continues to climb. So just keep that into consideration. Now, finally, year 3, going into year 4, kind of with where I'm at now, I have a bit more of a bigger rotation for sure. I'm playing about 8 to 10 shows every single month, whatever I can really fit in to maximize my time. Again, I teach full time. That's what I've been doing since I was 18 years old. And I see about 30 students every single week. So I'm really trying to make this thing a balancing act for myself. But now in year 3, year 4-ish, I'm playing about 8 to 10 shows. And after learning a bit more about what other musicians make, especially those that I kind of know that do perform solo acoustically, I do have a bit more of a greater minimum base pay that I require. And I do play at nicer, better places, so they have no problem paying that. Basically, my base rate for 2 sets is $150 now. And again, in these years, you're starting to really not only learn how to play and perform and hone in on your craft. That's important. You're going to be doing that. But you'll also start to notice and realize what places pay and why. So for example, restaurants, they're going to pay more than bars in most cases. And if you get, a casino gig, you might obviously get paid more than a restaurant. So you kind of learn these things. And you also start to find out places that do have live music. So when you're really new to it and you haven't really discovered that yet, you might only know a couple places that do it. But then all of a sudden, because you follow other people on social media, you get to talking to other musicians and they say, oh, have you played this place or this place? Well, all of a sudden, they're playing these places because they pay well, they're high end, they have a lot of traffic, and you start to learn those things as well. And again, that has nothing to do with the performance aspect of things or getting better at your craft. But what you're doing is you're setting yourself up for success so that you can build more relationships and find these places that actually do pay a lot better money. And here's why. Easily my first year, I just thought that the base rate of pay for all of these musicians that were performing around me in my city was about, maybe $100, and that was it. Like that was the most that restaurants or bars or casinos or whatever were going to pay for these musicians. So I kind of thought that was, the expectation point. But soon I realized after talking to other musicians, like, hey, this place paid me $225 for 3 sets. Or this place paid me $300 for 3 sets, or whatever the case may be. Like you start to find these things out and you're like, hey, I should be reaching out to these places now, especially after you have the experience and you have a bit of a good resume. Reach out to these places because you now just found out for yourself based around just kind of being around the block a bit and talking to other musicians and finding out for yourself what these high-end places pay. All right, what I want to do now is go ahead and go in depth with you guys on things that I highly recommend you consider and things that I highly recommend you do or implement if you are a live performer or just getting into performing live. And these are all things that I wish I knew how to do from the beginning. I learned from experience and I'm here to share them with you guys. So we're going to go ahead and make a list now and let's go ahead and get going. All right, the very first thing that I want to talk about is how to reach out to the venue or a venue for the very first time. And you've got to take this seriously because this is your very first, way of introducing yourself as well as hearing back from a venue, hopefully, for the very first time and hoping that this can be a recurring gig and a recurring relationship. So a few things to consider when you reach out to a venue. One is I would go ahead and make basically like a Word document and make a template, almost like a small resume of things that you can implement about yourself. And you don't want to make this extremely long. You don't want to have, paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. You want to make it pretty straightforward to the point. A few things that I would put in, again, for example, based off of myself, would be I would put my name, what I do. Do you have a complete sound system? What kind of music do you play? Implement that you have a good social media following, as well as some clips to some music or some current live footage of what you've done recently, maybe over the last couple of months when it comes to some of your live show performances. You can keep it really simple. Again, you want to come off as really friendly and make sure to add your contact information as well. It's also maybe beneficial if you want to make a small free website where they can just simply click a link and it has a bunch of small pieces of footage to some of your shows as well as maybe some show dates. So All of those things are some things that you can consider implementing into your own email, especially if you are reaching out to, say, 10 venues in one sit down. You're just like, I'm going to reach out to these 10 places. Just having a nice, easy copy and paste template that you can just send away, that's going to save a lot of time and make you look really nice and professional. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is some of the best information I ever received, and I'm glad I received it early on, especially within my first year when things were a bit tough and rough for me. And that is the fact that I need you to take every gig that is offered to you, especially if you're brand new. Again, it's all about honing in on your skills, learning the ropes, and again, your first 15 to 20 shows easily, you're going to learn the most you ever learned. So even if they're unpaid gigs, even if you only walk out with $30 in tips like I did, just take the gigs. You're building momentum and experience. You're building relationships, whether you know it or not. And it's some of the best information I ever received. So I highly recommend you consider that and really take that to heart. Now, the next thing that I want you to really work on, especially if you haven't really considered it, or maybe you're not really good at it yet, is building a better social media presence, whether that's on Facebook, Instagram, or both, as well as being able to network with other venues. Here's what I mean. If you get an opportunity to play live and say you have a show on Thursday night or Thursday, what I want you to do every single time you have a show, just build up this as a bit of a habit, is to create a post around your show. And I know that seems pretty obvious, but a lot of people might just hop on their phone and text people, hey, I got a show at this place, or hey, I got a show at this place. And that's fine. But what I want you to do is get used to tagging these venues in your posts on Facebook, on Instagram, make it a part of your story on Instagram or Facebook. And it just goes a long way because usually most places that have live music, they also have social media and they'll see that you're working with them as a team. You guys can share each other's posts. You can just be able to reach a greater audience basically, especially if you can get people during your shows to follow you on social media. That's how that snowball effect kind of works. And you can build a good social media presence and it just looks good coming from you as well as to the venue. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about that works hand in hand with the whole networking thing is building relationships because you never know what's going to come from them. And this can be, putting your best foot forward to be very respectable and friendly to people that came out to your shows, whether obviously you know them or not. Staff members, managers, bar owners, you never know. Here's why. There was an instance personally for myself where I had met somebody and knew them for about a good year because they were a bartender at a place where I was playing pretty regularly. And all of a sudden, he stopped working there. But about 6 months later, I had gotten a phone call from him and he had asked me if I would perform at the place that he was now managing. And this place is a higher end place, a better playing gig, and it's a chain. So now I play at all three of their locations throughout each month. So you never know who you're gonna meet. There's also been times where I've met somebody at a venue between sets, never met them before, never knew about them before, but then they go ahead and take one of my cards and they call and they want me to do a private event or a private function. So you never know based around networking as well as just building good, healthy relationships with people, what's gonna come of it. The next thing up, I did mention this a little bit earlier, but doing some of your own research. And this can come with time, but you also have to do it diligently on your own as well. And that's going to be doing research, finding out what places have live music. Maybe you didn't know that these places did. What people are, getting paid for some of these gigs. I know that can be a personal and touchy subject. You don't want to just go up to a musician you just met and just ask him, hey, what are you getting paid? But, kind of trying to figure out, okay, this person on social media that I've been following has been playing live here in the city for 10 plus years. He plays 20 shows a month. Where is he playing and why? And then you'll soon to find out that this person is getting paid well from these places because they're willing to pay. And, you might just get an opportunity from a cancellation, or maybe you just get one show opportunity, but that can come and turn into obviously a recurring gig and a relationship for years and years and years. So doing your own research and, communicating with other musicians, following them on social media, seeing how they do things, it's really important because it's only going to elevate what you do. Okay, now what I want to talk about is that after a certain point, you're going to want to invest in yourself and invest in upgrading your own gear. And obviously, this is something that you can do slowly over time. But after your first, year or 2 years, If there's a piece of gear that's only going to take your performance and to take you to the next level, and you know that, it's good and okay to slowly invest. Maybe that means getting a better or higher quality microphone, or maybe it's getting a better quality PA system, whatever it may be, but slowly investing in yourself and in your setup is going to be really important, because if you do see the top musicians, typically they have some pretty good gear. Doesn't mean that you can't be a good performer, if you have a little bit cheaper, lower end gear, not at all, but it's only going to elevate your performance when it comes down to quality and sound over time. All right, now the very last thing that I want to talk about and touch base on today is very important, and it's something that I really push myself to do every single day, and that's going to be not get comfortable. Not getting comfortable in your own ways. And what I mean by that is, if you do perform live and you've been playing really like the same 25 songs repeated, sure, you're probably getting really good at those songs and they're comfortable, but let's keep pushing the boundaries. Let's keep learning new songs. If you've got a problem with, let's say, breath work when you sing, or maybe this one part of the song is really giving you trouble, let's keep working at it. Let's keep hammering those things out. Continue to get better with whatever that may be. And I bring up the breath work thing because for myself personally, I feel really comfortable singing nowadays, but I know that there are times where I could improve on certain areas of songs where I could be breathing a lot better and breathing more correctly as a singer. So for example, that's something that I work on personally, and yours may be different, but I want you to not get comfortable and settle in your ways. I want you to continue to work on whatever it is that you want to get better at, because you will get better. Just don't get comfortable. Okay, now I do hope with today's video that you really gain something from it, or hopefully multiple things. Because again, for myself personally, I really wanted to be open and honest and again, transparent with you guys on what it took for me to be able to get from, again, making $0 my first year of playing live basically, to now making pretty good money with what I do. Came with it, sure, a lot of practice, time, commitment, all those things, but the tips that I gave you at the end are all so important. And as you get better with those exact tips, like I said, reaching out to venues and learning how to communicate, build relationships, those are things that take time, but you have to be aware of and understand how to do those correctly. So I do hope that you got a lot from today's video. And also, again, really quick, if you guys would like to support us directly and see more content every single week coming out from the channel here at Growth in Music, just consider subscribing. It helps us a ton, and I will see you guys next time.